For 4 years, Wall Street has wondered what will happen when the next Democrat enters the White House. And as Joe Biden builds his economic team, the resounding feeling is one of relief. Bloomberg Wall Street reporter Max Abelson joins us now from New York. Max, it's great to have you back on Quick Take. What are your contacts on Wall Street saying about President-elect Biden and his picks for the positions that he's announced thus far?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. I love Quick Take. I'm glad to be back. I spent like a pretty solid 24 hours in a row talking to the people I talk to, because my job here is, Wall Street's money and power and kind of the landscape of what Wall Street is thinking and doing. And, you might have thought that because we're not seeing, Larry Fink or Jamie Dimon, these sort of like big billionaire CEOs get jobs in the White House, you might think that Wall Street would be disappointed. They are not. You can see Biden's team take shape, and it has veterans of venture capital and private equity and asset management and finance. And so when I talk to, executives and even a couple of billionaires across the financial landscape, what I heard was, a smile in their voices.
So what is this all about? Are they just happy that Senator Elizabeth Warren's name has been announced for a cabinet position right now? Or do they like how they're sort of seeing a theme of moderates taking positions?
I mean, first of all, you're absolutely right to mention Elizabeth Warren. There was a time when it seemed like, she could be the Democratic nominee, and then it seemed like she could be the Treasury Secretary. And more importantly, I think it's fair to say that I think what Wall Street fears is, Biden drifting into a progressive voice that really is a sustained attack on big corporations and financial capitalism writ large. I mean, it has felt to them like that has been a real possibility. But, instead what they're getting are people in the Biden orbit who know finance, and maybe they're not billionaire CEOs, but they're really sort of woven into the fabric of financial capitalism. So we're talking here about Brian Deese, who comes from BlackRock. That's where he's been the last couple of years, and he's going to be the head of the NEC. And he's not the only person from BlackRock, by the way. We got Wally Adebayo. Then, Tony Blinken, who's going to be Secretary of State. That guy was working at a private equity shop where the chairman is John Thain, who, Wall Street.
A familiar name from the financial crisis.
Exactly. And it goes on. I mean, Ron Klain is going to be chief of staff. He's not. Remember, these people aren't, lifetime financiers, but Klain was at a pretty big shop with Steve Case, the AOL founder. He was an executive and a general counsel. So these are people who are woven into how finance thinks, and that makes Wall Street people happy.
So all that said, Max, not everybody you spoke to is happy about this. Jeremy Greer, an executive director of Liberation in a Generation, that's a group that advocates for more economic influence for people of color. What did you hear from them?
So on the one hand, Greer and people like Jeff Hauser, what they say is, they're Heather Boushey and Jared Bernstein, who are going to have important jobs in the Biden administration, are moves in the right direction. Boushey and Bernstein are examples of really progressive economists who believe in using the Fed's might to help Black Americans and others. But what Greer told me is that, there moves in the right direction, but he wants to see more of it. I mean, I think I sense genuine disappointment from him that we're seeing, Jeff Zients, who is a finance executive. In fact, he's on leave as CEO from something called the Cranemere Group, which is sort of like buys businesses. Zients was a co-chair of the Biden transition, which gave him a lot of power over what we're seeing now. And Bloomberg has reported that Zients could be a sort of a big COVID czar. So when Greer and people like him look around and they see Jeff Zients or Blinken or Brian Deese, who was just named to the NEC yesterday, I think maybe crestfallen is too much, but I think they feel really disappointed.
Max, what did you hear from John Corzine, who of course ran Goldman Sachs before becoming a senator and governor of New Jersey? What did you hear from him?
That's right. John Corzine is smart because he knows not only about how to accumulate power in finance, but he knows about how to accumulate political power too. Because when John Corzine left Goldman, he became a U.S. senator for New Jersey and then a governor as well, and then went back to finance where he had trouble at MF Global. He's an investor again, so he knows what he's talking about. And what he says is, he seems happy. I think he says that there should be room for finance executives, even ones who haven't spent their full careers on Wall Street like the way a Larry Fink or a Dimon has. Someone like John Corzine would be thrilled if Larry Fink, who's co-founder of BlackRock, or Dimon, who runs JPMorgan, someone like John Corzine would be totally thrilled if a Fink or a Dimon became Treasury Secretary. But Corzine, it seems, is happy to see people with slightly different resumes. And then, of course, Janet Yellen as Treasury Secretary, who I think is widely seen both probably by progressives and by financiers as kind of a consensus pick that I think both sides can probably live with.
Yeah, can you imagine how it would alienate progressives if you saw names like Fink or Dimon in there in the cabinet? Bloomberg's Max
right.
Abelson in New York. Thanks as always for joining us on Quick Take on this Friday morning.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quick Take now for insight in an instant.